Are those all the people online, those 4 people?
Yeah. That's. Oh, yeah.
No,
I
yeah.
can't see.
Do we have any public online? Are these riveted by dog policy?
Where is everyone? This is the most exciting stuff.
It's actually some of the main stuff we do.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
All right, I don't have that, but I can go ahead and open stuff up.
Mhm.
So it is 6:03. I will call this meeting to order. It is a regular November work session. The school board, if you would join me for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't ask, are we live go with the video feed? Okay.
Thanks.
So with that, we'll do a roll call. That's who's joining us.
Let's do it for the audience then.
Bill,
Here.
Heidi,
Here.
Christy,
Here.
Chair's here. Crystal.
Out into the ether.
That's the owl. Richard and Ricardo both informed me that they would not be here. I think they've missed you, so we have a quorum, so we can go ahead and go. I don't have anything for board communication, so if you want to tick it off on
Sure.
policy stuff, I'll let you go to work at it, because there's a lot.
We have lots and lots of policies to review. The goal of tonight's activities is to do a first reading because the board had asked that we kind of slow down. And I tried to identify whether or not there were simple technical changes that needed to be done. I haven't found any that are simple. So what?
Can I hold you for just a second?
Lisa, yeah.
Crystal texted me and said she is waiting in Zoom, so can we connect her up?
Yes.
Sorry.
You wanna get in?
I wasn't gonna interrupt you, I just-
So we took it all right.
Wait, Crystal's on. Oh, she's there.
There she is.
Hi, Crystal.
Crystal, do you want to chime in as board member? Just sit here.
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks for joining us, even from Florida.
Yeah, I might drop off a little bit early, but I just wanted to come on and join part of it.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's quite a way. Yeah, so I'll just go down the list. Based on my detailed review of some of these policies, we're going to wait because I need to get input from Mitch and the principals on some of these investigatory processes. Make sure that the things that we are adding are new instead of things that we're already doing. And I don't want to pad a policy that doesn't need to be padded. At the same time, I want to clarify that the things that we're supposed to be doing are actually in our procedures. I'm sure they are, but I still need to do that work. So we're going to start with the list on the agenda with the CBA, the qualifications and duties of the superintendent. It starts with the introductory paragraph that explains the changes. And I'm putting forth a recommendation that we retain the language in number 1 that requires the superintendent to have an Oregon administrative license in order to ensure that for a district this size, having someone with the minimum qualifications to be a superintendent is really important. Some districts would like language to be looser where it doesn't require that and allow someone to gain that while they're on the job, but that would be a very, very challenging situation for a new superintendent to come into a position where they don't have any administrative experience. So therefore, my recommendation is to leave the Oregon administrative license in number 1.
I had a question on number 4. It says service as a superintendent or administrative experience in the central administration of a school system. So if somebody's only been a building principal, would that, is that there? Is that qualifying?
Because it says
The central
the central
administration?
administrator, yeah, it could.
Because for instance, you were never a superintendent before.
No, but I did do central office work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what would that be considered?
Oh, I was the program director for McKinney-Vento, special programs director for Oregon City School
All
District, ELD, all that. So yeah, I have done some of those things.
But that doesn't sound like building principal, is
No,
that what you were
No,
asking, right, Heidi?
yeah, but I was also a building principal, so you
Right,
know, having both is important, but sometimes you can, Sherry's a real good model for that, making sure that as we're mentoring people moving into administrative positions, especially into the principalship, that they take on responsibilities at central office to have a bigger picture before they,
Okay,
it could be, either direction.
yeah,
So
all right.
it's okay, I think it's okay to leave it in there. Because you also have number 1 that just says that they need to have an administrative license in case you have an exceptional candidate that just hasn't had the opportunity to work in a position that allows them to meet number 4.
So you have to meet just one of the 4, or I think it says all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Hmm.
And it's always up to a board when they're doing their search. It's up to them to, you might not find a candidate that has every single
But
qualification.
not if
But
it's
if,
in policy, then it's not really up to the board.
well, if it's you think then they have to have that in the policy?
That's,
Because that might be difficult.
I'm questioning that.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a good question, It's something to consider.
The school system, I guess, is what I'm experienced, because, so if somebody's a superintendent of the ESD and wants to come to the school system, is the ESD a school system?
No, it's much larger than that.
Right, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't
Yeah.
not consider, you would consider a superintendent of an ESD who wants to move to your school system
Mhm.
as a candidate, but this would preclude that.
Hmm.
Is my opinion.
Well, they've had superintendent experience though,
Of a,
because they're superintendent. Superintendent's a
well,
superintendent.
again, I'm going back to the header of this, and it says you have to meet all 4 of these
Oh,
conditions.
okay.
I would consider WESD a school system. It's servicing school systems. It's,
Not exactly.
well, it doesn't say superintendent of a school system, it just says the administrative experience
Of a school
of a
system.
school system, but those are 2 separate things from what I read.
If it
You're
said of
either a
if it said of
superintendent-
an education system, I
Right,
would be more.
so maybe the 4th one needs to be rewritten somehow.
or maybe you could just write the leading sentence there to the effect of something like the board, the board looks for a superintendent to be a strong educational leader who has, and just something that we would hope that it would have most of the qualifications, so that you don't have to tick off all 4 boxes or, you know what I mean? Like, you would. That
Yeah, you
should be
could
the
just say who has,
experience in or.
How about may have
Yeah.
service?
May have,
So
Yeah.
number 4.
Yeah,
may
I like
have.
that.
Okay.
who may have the following professional experience and training, yeah.
And you want that may have only in number 4?
I mean, then in the next one, what the personal and professional
Because
qualities,
you probably want 1,
But
2,
one
and
is a
3.
mandatory, that's the problem, right?
And two would be mandatory.
I think
Two
they're
is
all
mandatory.
kind of mandatory because those, anybody can develop.
I think 1, 2, and 3 are 4's
so,
So
not.
four
so
you
maybe
would
is May.
May for number 4.
I mean, are we talking about training experience and success? Is that the one you're looking at?
Mhm.
Sorry, say who, huh?
Or which 4 are we looking at?
The very first
The
one.
very first
Oh,
section.
service as, okay. Well, if you're gonna say may, then four would be okay, because it'd be
Mhm.
great to get.
If
something.
4 is the one that is May.
Mhm.
Oh, all right.
And we'll make it with, I mean,
Oh, I
Now,
get it, okay.
Our soup
So-
contract requires one as well. Does that, is that overlapping or is that
no, it's
just,
fine,
what's that?
it's
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Because that's what we have in our generic soup contract, says you have to maintain the credentials
Mhm.
of superintendent.
And I think that the rest of it is fine.
Yeah, I would agree.
Sorry, I'm in catch up mode here, so.
And the specific functions, I think are really important. Number one is added, and I think it's critical.
Mhm.
Because it focuses one on data and accountability and also on equitable changes. Enacting equitable changes. Using the language for every student. So I think it aligns with our district's vision, mission and vision.
Yeah, I
So
think
is
that's a
that-
good,
Is that, I'm sorry, is that whole bullet now?
Yes. It's new language. And then 3 is the change of the word board to district. And then 6 is the attend all regular and special meetings of the board.
What's happening with 5? That footnote is added? Or
Yes,
is- Okay.
review policy BDDC to ensure consistency, and we're consistent.
when it says schedule meetings, places number 5, that can be a delegated responsibility,
Yes.
but it's still appropriate to put it here for you, okay.
And to match the multi-session years, they changed the annual policy changes to regular policy changes. Which means that the vision of how a superintendent will use their time. Of 100% of the time, policy starts to look more like 25% of the time, rather than maybe 10 or 15% of the time.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I move that we consider for first reading policy CBA as presented.
I would amend your motion to the putting item 1.4 as
Oh.
a May,
Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm in.
Are you accepting that for the amendment?
Yeah, with the amendment of adding May.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none,
Yeah, I actually have a question. So the one that's being showed on the screen doesn't match the one that I'm seeing in the Google Docs.
It's the one that was linked on the agenda.
Yes, the one on the agenda actually shows where regularly will replace annually, but the one that's being showed on the screen does not reflect that.
Interesting.
I pulled it right off of the agenda, so I'm
I
not,
mean, I literally have the agenda open side by side.
correct. So I went to the agenda and pulled the first 6, I pulled right off the agenda. Then I went to the link for the next bunch that we're gonna get to. So I can go see if I can find it off that link and see what it looks like.
I don't know, it's just not showing what we're removing and what we're leaving.
Oh,
This is brand
interesting.
new, isn't it?
Well, the one that we're looking at together on the screen, Crystal, is the
Right.
correct one.
Right, but
matter-
but it still doesn't reflect the changes. We have annually and regularly next to each other. How can that be?
Oh, because this is the way that it shows up from OSBA, so you can see what's changed and how it's changing. And then when we adopt the revised version, only the changes that we make show up, the old language goes away that's crossed out.
My copy shows it crossed out in purple. I wonder if purple's not showing up there for some reason. Well, that's on a different. I don't know.
The agenda that I pulled, which was like, I literally just opened the same one that I zoomed into, has it in blues and purples. But then the one that you are showing on the screen doesn't show the changes.
I see the same one you're seeing, so.
I'm not seeing that one at all.
The one-
I'm not seeing
No
that.
purples.
The one I'm looking at has 9 as the last number on page 2, and that one had like 9 is the first one on page 3 or something.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
I literally pulled these at 4:30 right off of this. And now when I pull it, I'll pull it over and show you. I see what Crystal was talking about. I have no idea what's going on because when I pull it over, I have all these notes to the side and I didn't think we wanted those. So don't know what to tell you guys.
And this one isn't that long. I don't, what the
Annually
heck?
crossed out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I show annually crossed out on my screen.
Yeah, me too.
So I just want to make sure what we're actually voting on.
Hold on, yeah, thank you, Crystal, for catching that. I want to take a look at the posted agenda to see if I can't find out.
It shows.
I linked mine through the agenda, and that's what I got the right one.
Yeah,
I clicked my line through the agenda and it says annually crossed out.
Because
And do you-
mine's crossed out, but the one I was seeing on the screen did not match, and that's where I was a little confused.
We're all on the same agenda except Linda.
Okay,
Okay, I guess,
I don't know why, yeah.
And I
I guess
see
my
that,
question would be then, do we want anything up for anyone that might be watching not through Zoom? Or do you just want me to take mine down? Because I don't know why mine looks different, but like I said, if I pull it up, if I just pull this one down, then I get all the notes to the side, which doesn't feel correct.
Ours have notes to the
ours have
side.
those to the side, yeah.
Yeah, the notes to the side, because this is the draft version that we're working on. This isn't the final presentation, what it looks like.
Well, yeah, I understand that. So is this, I'm pulling it over now. Is this what you want the public to see? Normally, it is not what we show, so I'm not sure how you would like me to do this.
I don't think there's a problem with that. That's from OSBA, so comment for me or something, but no, I
Well-
think it's,
whatever we're reading should be what the public is reading, as in open meeting.
Yeah, that says
That's
version
not a
1
problem.
crossed out, that's what we're working on.
Yeah.
So. Thank you.
So are we square then?
yeah, we're on document.
Yeah, we are. all.
Okay, so we still have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any other discussion on that motion? Did you want to reiterate that, Heidi, so we know what we're voting on?
I move for first reading, the policy CBA as presented with the addition of the word may at the beginning of 1.4.
Okay, thanks for the reiteration. If there's no more discussion, we'll move to a vote. We'll do a roll call. Bill,
Aye.
Heidi,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Crystal,
He's gone.
Sorry, no, I'm here. I just don't have a mouse. Aye.
chair votes for, that motion carries. All right, do you have language on the next one you want to present?
Okay, and here's where, yeah, there was, we need to look at these next ones. These are all about instructional resources, instructional materials, because the board had asked to review the curriculum adoption policies, anything related to that, instructional materials. So we, Diane went through the folders and found these policies for us to review. IIA is a newly revised policy, so I'd like to start there, and then we'll come back to the other ones.
Okay, so we're skipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the sample, and it's actually, IIA is also in the update. Just going to change of language. In the gender identity definition. It's been added, and I just have to make sure that it's in this sample policy that's being presented to you. Yes, it is. Can you highlight the words, you found them over there? Yeah, gender identity. There were several policies that were updated as a result of the addition of gender identity being separated from sexual orientation. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it's also included in the sample policy. So this is the policy that they've presented as a model. And it does have some things in 2A. I want to be sure everyone understands as we're adopting. There were so many policies in this one, not even funny. Alright. All right, so the word regulations is different than adding administrative regulations to the first paragraph. And recommended instructional resources will be free of racial, color, national origin, religious, disability, age, marital status, gender identity, which is added, sexual orientation, or sexual bias. The instructional materials, again, because it's more encompassing than curriculum adoption, shall contain appropriate readability levels, and everything else pretty much the same from that point down. Again, at the paragraph that starts with all basic, there's no change in that paragraph at all. And gender identity, color, free of racial, color, gender identity is in the all supplemental materials as well. So this brings everything into compliance and alignment with the statute changes and making sure that gender identity is protected in the work that we do. It's one of, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 policies that have revisions as a result. So this is just one of them. So any questions about that?
I have a question.
Mhm.
When we talk about, when we adopt course curriculum, which is generally what we would think of as the main textbook or the, I don't know how else to put it, like the main textbook of a course. And then we talk about supplemental materials and library media resources. I would think it would be impossible to select all those by cooperatively, by teachers, by committee, right? So a teacher will select what they want for that class.
Jared, would you like to address this?
No, we do our adoptions as a district, K-12. So that's the basic instructional materials. keep in mind that textbooks really are only required to have 51% of the standards covered in their materials. So since we teach to the state standards, there may be supplemental materials we need to purchase in order to adequately instruct in all of the standards.
Okay, I guess it's my question. So you're teaching a language arts class, and the teacher decides to have a reading book required, a novel
A
or
supplemental novel.
a supplemental novel, okay? Does that go through the same required adaptation, process for adaptation?
Yes, there needs to be still an opportunity and this is a practice that's difficult because it's ongoing, especially at a period of time when we're trying to replace our classroom novels with more culturally responsive teaching materials. And so this is we'd be constantly putting up new novels for adoption and review. I was not here for the last adoption process, which is when the high school adopted all of their novels for use. So as we go through the process this time, we will be looking for those supplemental materials that will also need to be covered.
So one teacher doesn't unilaterally decide that they want to read this in their class.
What I'm trying to say is one teacher should not make that decision. I'm not going to say that one teacher has not done that, but that is not how it should be done.
How do we, this might be a terrible question, how do you know if that's really not happening or not happening?
Part of it, we discovered through the curriculum audit that we just did, and teachers wanting the current practice right now has been teachers wanting to switch out. They don't get to make a unilateral decision. It's a departmental decision as to the aligned resources that they would use. This is mostly at the high school level, which is where the novels are used.
But then the department brings those resources to meet this
Well,
policy.
Let's say that's the process that should happen, that we are putting forward as the process for those materials. I am not going to say that that's the process that has been happening.
So does this policy that we're reading through here help to fix that?
Yes,
So would you say, prior to board approval, parents, students, and interested district patrons have the opportunity to review those materials?
yes,
So that will be posted and it will be notified that that's out, this is what we're looking at, please let us know if these are. So just like, I know that, for instance, when there's going to be a film shown
Yeah.
that's R-rated or whatever, that, the kids have to bring home something and have it signed that they're allowed to do that. I mean, are we doing that? Do we need to do that sometimes for instructional material that we have?
I think that if we go through the appropriate process for supplemental materials and the materials are posted, the teachers put the materials in their syllabus so that there is that information there. But the pieces that we're trying to shore up are how the materials are selected, how we're notifying parents, and where the information is available for parents. And then if a parent has a question about any of the materials, that they have an opportunity to review them, to meet with the appropriate people to discuss that. And then and it's in this policy as well, if they want to challenge any materials, that process is clearly stated.
I know that if it's in the syllabus at the beginning of a year that the parents have to sign approving the syllabus, then that's very helpful. So.
I'm sorry, but are we approving, so the parents have to approve syllabus?
No, I'm sorry, that was just a comment on the side. That was just, I'm sorry.
I'm like, we're gonna have to go on a whole different discussion on that. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure, I mean, I haven't personally seen that, but that's That's a whole
Well,
nother topic.
maybe not every student actually has a parent sign up. Right?
And
well, not every parent has or not every student has a parent to sign that. So that needs to be handled in a way that's sensitive to that. And definitely shouldn't be for credit.
I think the other way of thinking about monitoring is that in essence, the principals, are responsible for seeing that the adopted curriculum delivered, in things. And so there are processes put in place for teachers to develop unit plans and projection maps that are based on the standards and materials that we've adopted. We're not perfect at that, but that is in essence the system.
Well, and all of those projection maps and different things came after these adoptions. And so what we've been working to do is short all of those practices. Because making sure that we are purchasing the very best materials, number one, and materials that our teachers will use is very important. And then going through a process to move our practices along when there is a beloved novel that might not really be as culturally relevant as we would have liked it to be in today's world.
You're not talking about the novel beloved, you're talking about
A,
a beloved
novel.
novel.
using as an
A
example.
novel that we
That
really
we
like.
are, as a team and a department, making those decisions together for this, again, is mostly high school, for a high school program. And that it's not an individual teacher. Even though I will say right now we have individual teachers who are wanting to move along in that regard. They're wanting to get more culturally responsive materials. Other than the ones that we've had in our book room that probably, you know, had a good run, but it's time to look at some different materials.
So let me ask you this might be devil's advocate, but does this policy, as it's stated here, hamstring you in a way that does not allow for critical thinking, where bias is really, is part of some of past teachings? Does it hamstring you in a way to not be able to deal with that through curriculum?
I don't see it, when I read this, I didn't see it that way.
Okay,
I really felt more hamstrung by the current
by the
policy
current policy, okay.
because it was so outdated.
And then can you clarify, you said if you had a novel that was historically taught but may not be contemporary in terms of equity, is there still a place for that in the curriculum?
I don't have an answer to that specifically because it depends on the novel and the process. So
Okay.
what's most important is that we are meeting the needs of our high school instructional program.
Sure.
And so whatever is determined, and right now, just for this ELA adoption, we're working on our vision for this adoption and what we want to see happen as a result of it.
Yeah.
So that it's not just, oh, I like this one, I like this one. It's like we're doing a lot of foundational work to build educational philosophy around the adoption and what our vision is for the adoption. Because we've had teachers at the high school been here for a long time, and you know what they leave behind, the new person will come in and say, I have these materials, I have this information I can pick up and start teaching. So our curriculum audit illustrated that it had been K-12, a little bit of a choose your own adventure. And when we looked at all of that, we said, this doesn't provide a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So we've been trying to undo the effects.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So this would help, for instance, if you had multiple language arts teachers at the same grade level, they would be all then teaching the same curriculum instead of each person doing
Absolutely,
it
that's the
themselves.
goal.
Okay,
Right, it shouldn't matter what teacher you have, what materials you're using in your classroom, and that's very true at the elementary level. But to Bill's point, I meant to say this. Once this process is done, it is up to the building administrator to make sure that the materials are being used. This is a really big adoption.
Yeah, that's why it's getting a lot of questions.
Mhm.
So to augment what you just said, is it not more correctly stated that the teachers pull from the same pool of materials? Not exactly the same material.
I would say if it's a ninth grade English class, every teacher who teaches ninth grade English is using the same novel. There's an agreement about that.
Okay. But
And
maybe
it's
later,
not even at high school. We have sometimes that the middle school teachers have already taught a novel, and then when they get to high school, they want to teach the same novel. That's why there has to be K-12 alignment.
I have one more question.
Sure.
You said something about having all of the curriculum available for whoever in the community to look at. Is that access to, I mean, how do people access that? Without, or can they only see what their own student is in now? Or how do
Oh, no, at
how do
any
we
time,
figure
the
that out?
parent could ask to see the instructional materials for the district or the school. And usually they work through the building administrator first. And they can take time to preview those materials.
But that's not like on the webpage.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
Yeah.
I was just thinking the
not
same
yet.
question, is that something that
We could access digitally and have that available just on an ongoing basis.
This is Crystal. I would chime in and agree. I feel like we kind of keep our curriculum hidden behind the scenes, and you really have to ask a lot of questions through a lot of people to be able to see it all. And I think we should be more transparent.
I would wholeheartedly agree.
That may be something long-term that we could look at, because
Mhm.
that could even be a strategic planning to
Mhm.
make sure that our curriculum is transparent as. I'd rather give them, provide more information than less,
Exactly.
at least from a standpoint of, the parent hat, so.
Mhm.
Well, according to Division 22, at any given time, any parent should be able to walk into the office of the building that their child is in and ask to see the curriculum, a document that describes what's happening in that building, and we should be able to hand it to them. So if we're not able to do that just yet, it's something that we have to work
Yeah, online access, like on the web page, maybe for that grade level, this is what we need, page that has a curriculum for that grade level, with all the materials listed. Yeah, I know, but sometimes, ideally that's the case, but I think that, in the past I've asked, and if you get a binder with something this thick and you have to kind of try and look through it
Yeah.
and find it, and it's kind of awkward.
One more question, and this may just be, they just do it, but, so as the legislator adds material to required curriculum, how does this group work in that mode? Obviously, they can't reject it, right? So, what I mean?
I'm not sure I'm following.
So the legislator continuously adds.
Like new standards.
Yeah,
Yes.
additional standards, additional curriculum material that must be amended or appended to yours, to whatever it is you're doing. So this body is going to interact in making that happen?
The adoption committee?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a different committee for each content level, so because you want the teachers to teach to that content. But yes, they would interact with that.
Then they have to find a way to meet that
Yes,
standard.
and oftentimes, when it's the additional things, it's through the supplemental materials. Because a textbook is not gonna have everything in all of our specific Oregon standards reflected.
But what-
However, oftentimes publishers will make an addendum. There are some additional materials that meet the Oregon standard.
I think most of the time I see legislation, ODE is responsible for coming up with some pack of material for schools to use as a standard.
And they have been doing that with some of the social studies, the tribal history standards. They've been actually preparing, lessons for teachers to use.
But this group would go through that material and say, yeah, that's the deal.
And that's where the projection mapping process is so important. And that had not been done at North Marion until just a few years ago. So that we can see the K-12 alignment of the standards and where they're taught. And so once we have that alignment process done, that's when we look for the instructional materials at each grade level to teach to those students.
What is the timeline for that alignment process?
Well, the standards are approved the year before we actually get into the adoption. So right now, the projection mapping process is happening for the ELA standards. We already have our projection maps, they're just updating them and we're sweeping changes to the ELA standards. So they just have to make sure that they have their projection maps aligned to the new language of the standards.
I guess I was talking about the K-12 alignment that you were talking about?
It happens through the adoption cycle. So every time that there's going to, so the materials are adopted on a 7-year cycle. So when the new standards for that particular content are approved, then that content area aligns the projection maps for that.
So you're working content area by content area.
Yes.
So far, I guess what's remaining on those content areas?
Well, next year will be math. We're actually working on Spanish right now. And then next year will be math, and then it will be science again, so it just rotates for every 7 years. Content. Work on.
Well, yeah,
I'll ask more later, but I'm not
Okay.
understanding exactly. what-
Yeah. and
I understand the 7-year cycle, but
Right.
that's not what I understood
Right.
earlier about a much bigger alignment happening.
yes, well, the curriculum mapping that she's talking about
Yes,
is the way in which people identify to what degree they are aligned and where there are gaps that need to be shored up. But then they revisit those maps every year, if I remember correctly, to see if they're still maintaining that track or if they drifted a little bit.
Or if there's new, maybe standards that have been
Yeah,
added. But if I'm gonna be honest, over the last 2 years,
Well, yeah,
that work has not been ongoing with teacher prep time. They've been spending their time on meeting the needs of students and distance learning. And we were told to prioritize our standards, so we weren't teaching to all the students. So that's what we're coming back around to where we left off in the spring of 20,
mhm,
actually.
yes, very true. Very, very true.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you for fielding questions right off the
No
bat.
problem.
Appreciate it. You got hammered, but clearly this is
super
an issue.
helpful.
Not hammered,
No, not hammered, but I mean, you know,
these are valid and important questions.
yeah,
So 2 through 6 are all combined, right? They-
Yes.
2,
the-
3.A.2 to 6.
Yes, there's an adoption process, there's a process, the AR is the procedures that would be followed. The AR number 2 is when someone wants to challenge them, procedure for that. And then the third AR is a challenge request form.
It doesn't say on the agenda whether this is first reading or
Yeah,
just
there-
as various.
yeah.
So, yeah,
I would recommend a first reading, so you have an opportunity to think about it and have input needed, or any questions come up. This is a very important topic. It's, it's what we do. So,
I would like to do a first reading and be able to really sleep on this one a little bit longer.
are you making a motion to that effect?
Yes, please. I'll make a motion that we accept this as a first reading, but we postpone the final till our, what is that? Our December board meeting? Is that when you
Yeah.
want to do it?
We don't have to set a date, we just would say approve for first reading.
All right, great.
I'll second.
So to clarify, we are taking items 2 through 6 as one lump.
that's what I was suggesting.
Where's
yeah.
2 through 6?
Well, you haven't
On the
looked at
agenda,
2
on the
yet.
agenda.
I would say 3 through 6, but if you'd like to look at 2 before you.
Okay, so you
Honestly,
were,
I would
you were
like
gonna
to-
come back to 2?
Yeah.
I would like
Okay.
to look at all 6 of these individually.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so what's your?
I'm
what's your
just
second-
saying,
What's your second on that? Oh, you mean if we do these alls first and then go through and fine tooth comb them in the interim?
I guess I wasn't understanding. I thought we were just talking about policy
Number 3?
IIA.
Okay,
I didn't know we were talking about 4 policies at once.
Well,
Well,
I think
the
it was,
ARs, there's 3 ARs for one policy.
yes,
It's not
Correct.
4.
they're all connected.
There's one policy with 3 ARs.
Okay, let me try it again. I make a motion that we accept first reading on the 4 IIAs only, with the opportunity to fine tooth all of the details out of them.
And,
If that's not right, someone take over for me because it's like 10:30 or 10 o'clock. But I don't want to accept these as final. I want to go through them in really good detail to make sure that's exactly what we want it to say, because this will be challenged over the next 2 years.
and I just wanted to be clear that what you would be approving is the policy. That we
Right.
don't have. ARs are what we do in response to the policy.
Policy.
So it's
Correct.
the A that's the most important thing.
We usually do the ARs.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
we
change
usually
that.
do adopt the AR.
As a fast
Yeah, but you're not
result.
required to, because you're not required to, you can, but you're not required to.
It's a good idea.
You can direct us to do the ARs.
Okay, so going back, if I'm clarifying her motion, she wants to accept agenda items 3 through 6 in that motion. Do I hear a second on that?
Oh,
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Christie? Crystal?
I
Chair votes for, motion carries. So that leaves us item number 2 on that list. And you said you had some background information on that, correct?
Yes, so let's pull that up on this is a new policy. We don't currently have this in our policies. Neither do we have that really large. But in this particular policy, this is about course approval and evaluation. So it's kind of that, one, there's a transparency piece, but 2, there's an accountability piece. And you're looking at things more frequently than you are every 7 years. And you're doing it at the level of the course. So what's actually happening in the schools. So this would be, you're looking at, 1 year you would look at maybe the 3rd and the 4th grade. And the next year you would look at the 5th and the 6th grade. I mean, kind of thing. And you're looking at the courses, what's being offered. Is it aligned? Is it happening? Is it happening? What needs to stay? What needs to go? It's no longer relevant. And up at the high school level, this looks like we would look at the courses that are being offered, and you would split it up in between so that you evaluate them every 3 years. Someone takes a look and says, yes, that is an effective course. It has good enrollment. It's valuable. The teacher has updated it according to policy changes, new standards. They're using the right materials. Students are happy with the course. It's making an impact. I mean, those are the things that you would do in evaluation. Are you really hitting the mark with that course? Or is that course no longer relevant? It's not popular. We're not sure why we're still offering it. Should it be replaced with something else? And it leads to different conversations, but it allows the K-12 people and the building principals and the teachers to reflect on the value of their course in the bigger picture. So it's a new level of analysis for the work that's being done. From the district view, is it a great investment? Is it continuing to? Is there something missing? Should we be using the resources for something else? There's all sorts of questions that can be raised. But this is eyes on what's actually happening and giving it a good look every 3 years to make sure that it's meeting the expectations, the mission, and vision of the district.
My question on this is, who's the evaluators and what is the action based on?
Yeah, my exact question too is,
Right, it just says we're going to evaluate, but it doesn't say, okay, so that's considered 2 out of 10 on the scale, so what's the action now, or is it?
For the criteria for evaluation.
Well, there's that, but that would be an AR, right? So, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, what's the metrics of the reporting on this?
I don't know.
Love the
I don't know,
policy,
yeah.
don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
wondering, okay, well, what does it drive?
Yeah.
Right.
What, do we have a current standard or is this?
No.
So this would be.
I would
Mm.
echo what Bill had said. I support this because I feel like we do have outdated courses and information out there that just hasn't ever been looked at because we've always done it that way. But I am curious who's going to be on that committee and making those decisions because, you know, change is hard and it's painful. So are we going to have people there who are willing to make the changes when needed?
I guess for this policy, what I'd like to request as a board is that, okay, love the policy, let's create an AR.
Mhm.
Let staff make an AR on how this policy is going to work. Or we can pass the policy, I'm all for this policy. I will vote yes. But I would like to see the AR eventually that says, okay, this is how we do this policy.
And I
Should we-
completely agree with Bill.
You want to talk about the procedures for course approval?
Oh, I just was going to say this is a big change because currently if a new course is, if there's a request for a new course, it's an internal process.
Mhm.
And this, it goes to the superintendent and you are informed as a board that you don't have any approval of new courses. So
Yeah.
this is why it's a significant change.
Well,
And that's great, love that.
yeah,
Sure.
no, that's the level of what the policy says.
Mhm.
It says the superintendent.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, there's no change there. But the idea that we would have,
A review committee of.
Yeah,
people
Yes.
how is
with
the
priority.
evaluation process
Yes.
and
Yeah.
what does it do?
Yeah.
Where's the cut line that says, okay?
yeah,
this
we're, yeah,
I don't
Isn't
see
gonna
anything
be
about the board.
Yeah, that was my thing is, I don't see board action on this as to how this is. As in, if this is a 3-year rotation and your curriculum is adopted every 7 years, there's a lot that could happen in 2 cycles of
Mhm.
this being, material being added, taken away, and that vests a lot of power in the superintendent. Not that you're gonna do anything wrong, but that, you know, because we're specifically tasked with curriculum adoption, I'm not sure that if that's a little bit of a usurpation of power in terms of, not so much power, but
yeah, the
Um,
lanes.
yeah, does that take
Yeah.
away the oversight that the board is tasked to do on, you know, on curriculum? Not, I'm
Right.
not arguing, I think it's,
It's a discussion.
yeah, but I think that's something that I would have a little bit of
Mhm.
not so much issue with, but I'd
I
like
think
some
that-
clarification in it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
You know, in terms of that we would write into our specific policy. Obviously, this is a sample, but
Mhm.
does that make sense?
yeah, but I would say that that would be a little bit of micromanaging on our part, because we don't decide, are you gonna teach robotics 1, or are you gonna teach, you know, computer science instead of robotics this term? I mean, that's not,
That's not our decision, that's a
yeah,
building
and I
decision.
think that's what they're talking about here in courses, the actual class itself, right?
Because if it changed curriculum, that would have to come to us
Right.
under
Right.
the IA,
Yes.
whatever we just looked at, right? So if there was a change to the curriculum resources, that would come to us. But if it's a robotics 1 versus robotics 2, that. right?
Yeah, and we don't get to make stuff up. I mean, we have to do with the state. These are, here's the things that you can teach. Here's the way, here are the courses, the NCES codes. I mean, there's lots of things that go into the structure that make sure that we don't go off the rails. At the same time, we try to align things to the mission and vision of the district. And with the board trying to move the district forward. So that's the role of the superintendent to make sure that those pieces line up.
Yeah, and reading it again, I agree with you. That's dealing with course level rather than curriculum level, so that's probably a good point.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Wait, well, sorry, Heidi, it's Crystal. I'm just gonna chat really super quick, then I'll give up my turn. But I do hear what Glenn is saying, though, to make sure that our courses meet our strategic plan and where we want the district to go and the guidelines that we're putting out. So it's not just I'll give you an example that I can think of right off the top of my head. We do not have another language offered except for Spanish. And nobody feels inclined to look at that right now. And that has been a huge topic that I hear from the Spanish speaking students that we have. So they have to wait every 3 years in order to look at that evaluation. And our strategic plan is equity and a bunch of other stuff that we want all these children to have the opportunity, but we're only offering the language they already know. So that's an issue. So that's what I'm hearing and what you're saying, Glenn, is that we got to keep everything on our strategic plan in addition to curriculum, if I'm hearing that correctly.
The way I hear it is, what you just said is, or Crystal is, I'm pointing at the owl. Is curriculum, like language, what languages we teach and things like that is curriculum stuff. And this policy is specifically about a course.
Well,
right?
yeah, but they're overlapping because I've heard it almost interchangeably and it's not. We don't offer that course here because you can take it somewhere else because we don't have the curriculum and back and forth. And I hear that all the time. So if we're going to have a course approval and evaluation, we need to make sure that our curriculum is cohesive to that and that we're not tying our hands with our curriculum and tying our hands with course approval and evaluation, if that makes sense.
Is our language, specific languages that we teach, is that a course or is that a curriculum?
From the high school point of view that I understand, it's a course because it's an elective.
These are courses. I mean, and then we seek curriculum to teach those courses. That's what we're in the process of doing right now.
So to add another language, we would need to adopt a new curriculum, right? And then structure the courses.
I'm gonna back up because I just made my own really important mistake. We would adopt new instructional materials. And so the curriculum are the standards and the materials that all go together to instruct the students. And so I'm not sure about the strategic planning process. I think other people can speak to that. But if through part of that process that we determine that we need to offer another language, then that's how that would work.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, I mean, budgeting and everything, so.
Correct.
I'm just saying, as a building principal, as I'm reading this policy, it doesn't keep you from recommending a new course or a new program at any time. The 3-year evaluation is just to make sure that we're continuing to have a process.
Current
To look
courses.
at what we're doing,
Yeah.
but we could add a course based on need or program it, at any time.
Yeah.
And
Just
we-
go through the process.
We always survey students about the new courses. I mean, we've had dozens of new courses done in the last 5 years.
I will say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't interrupt. That was done.
I will say that the board's role in this is that we supervise the superintendent and we're delegating that responsibility to the superintendent. Therefore, if there's something we're not happy with, we can't, it says that it's going to be reviewed by the superintendent, so.
Yeah, I think the board has got a responsibility to look and that's the word. To look at the rubric of what it is that the courses are being evaluated on and saying that that's a value.
Oh, yes,
to our
absolutely,
profession, right?
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
to do the evaluation or not to decide this or that, but to look at the rubric that's being used to evaluate a course
Mhm.
would be something that the board should know. How's that? Is that a better? way of
Yes.
saying it?
And to add,
Right.
like, there should be a rubric to add, of course, as
Correct.
well as.
Right, to know.
So it shouldn't just be, yeah.
Unless it's my idea, then it's okay.
But yes, I see what, yeah, there should be a way that we evaluate,
Yeah, the performance, what it
Yeah.
is that we're evaluating. right?
Yeah.
So.
and so
Well,
that's.
I do feel like that could be part of the AR. That
Exactly.
those rubrics be included, because this is so vague that it just doesn't really give you any information on how those decisions and choices and pieces are going to work.
And policies, some policies are intended to be that way, to drive an AR,
Yeah.
to get the details. Which is why I said, let's make an AR.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I will research the references here, the legal references on what the intent was for creating this policy. To give me direction.
Oh, I have one more question. I just want, we talk about workloads, how much of I think this
Oh,
is some of the most
absolutely.
important work, like,
Yes,
it's the most important work we do, and it should be
Yeah.
extremely important. I just want to make sure that the workload would not be overwhelming.
oh, well, it's, when I think of someone who does work like Sherry, it would be someone like Sherry. That their job is to make sure that we are evaluating our work. And this would be part of their work, and they would have a cycle, and they would be, it could literally be almost a full-time job, if not a half-time job.
So are you saying that would be an added position?
No, I'd say we have plenty of people, and we have people that know how to do this work. What we may not be doing is using our staff in a way that allows us to accomplish things like this because we're doing things. So I think this is something that will evolve and shift, and we'll be able to use our staff resources to accomplish it.
I would optimistically speculate that a lot of this policy is being done organically under the hood,
Yes,
right? And it's just making it official now.
right. It's just the gathering of the information.
So just back to the AR part here. I know you requested that we see one. If we're not required to approve it, then are we getting back to the point of, then we,
We always
Yeah.
see ARs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why, approval is kind of okay with there, as long as it's presented to us, right?
We could make a decision as a board.
But we're
if we
talking
wanted to
about-
carry on.
Yes.
if we're talking about curriculum decisions and curriculum decisions being a board function, then it exists essentially at the AR level
Yeah.
for this. I mean, that is where we are. That is what we just talked about. Is that where we want it to be?
Yeah, and certainly ARs are listed under our policies, which the board is
Yeah.
responsible for.
Yeah.
Right, so approval, we can decide that we're gonna approve, continue to improve all ARs.
Yeah, we have,
Right?
we have always.
To me, we
approved
always
it.
have, right, so. I don't know if I'm addressing your question, but it'll be presented, because it'll be in our policy book, which is what, 9,000 pages?
Yeah, maybe I
Long,
said that incorrectly. It's that you don't develop the AR.
Right,
Staff
no,
develop.
correct.
And yes,
Right.
okay, I said that.
Where the board kind of requests, and I do this with my other state functions, where we request the state agency to make rules on this legislation. See how it gets implemented.
Yeah,
Right,
and I think this kind of thing needs your input,
yeah,
because you'll have something to offer to this kind of an idea. So
and just as a side note, most legislators don't actually know how their own policies and legislation will actually be implemented until they see the AR a year later, and then they
Yeah,
realize, oh,
Sure.
Yeah.
this is not exactly the way we thought it was
Yeah.
gonna be, right?
buyer's remorse.
I guess I'm not, I'm just asking, Heidi, you say we always approved ARs. What if we, what if we see the AR and we're like, we don't approve this isn't what we want to do?
Oh, yeah. we
I
can do
just-
that.
We've done,
No, when I say approve, I mean, we've always
We've
voted on
always
it,
seen
we've always
that, okay.
adopted them. and
Okay,
voted on them.
okay, all right,
but most of our direction back to staff about we want something changed
right,
is in ARs.
right,
Right, not really in the policy.
right, right.
Right, when we say, well, we don't really like this piece.
Right.
Right, typically in the ARs.
Any more questions for staff?
Did we have a motion on the table?
We don't have a motion yet.
Okay,
Want to tackle that?
yeah, just getting to the main. IFD. I'll make a motion that we approve for first reading, policy IFD as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill, Heidi,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Crystal,
I,
chair votes for. Approved for first reading.
Okay, now we're down to USB policies. All right,
This should be a little more straightforward.
Oh, wow.
okay, now.
Although it's hard to believe that number 4 says that
I'm-
workplace harassment is required.
Yes, I know. There's not, yeah, not the right punctuation underneath, right? There's a couple of things on this list. There are several that will take work, I want to work with Mitch and with building principals on. So items 5 through 9. 14 and 16 through 20 are all related, except for one, I mean, but they're all connected in that way. So I don't want to do a first reading of those, and I would like you to read them, but I don't want to have a conversation about it until I work with Mitch.
So you don't want to have a conversation about which ones, all of them? I'm
All of them,
confused.
yeah. I want to.
5 through 9.
5 through 9, 14, and 16 through 20.
So we'll come back to those
Right.
another day for a first read.
Right.
So that leaves. what is
That-
it, Lee?
That leaves a few, and actually, a lot of them are,
Just the gender identity.
yeah, a lot of them are tied to the same changes and that were made in the legislature. So we can take them one by one, but I'm going to use the OSBA list, because this is the one that connects them. Okay. So AC, which is the non-discrimination required, ACAR, discrimination complaint procedure required, and equal educational opportunity. I suggest the following. All right, as for AC, it adds the gender language, gender identity language to non-discrimination. And at the bottom, it expands the definition of race to include physical characteristics that are historically associated with race, including but not limited to natural hair, hair texture, hair type, and protective hairstyles as defined by ORS 659. Everything else on that one is an update. So, and by update, I mean they add the new ORS, they change the dates, they update the rest of the citations. For ACAR, which is the discrimination complaint procedure, it updates the citations. There's a choice that the board has to make in step 3 about whether or not, if there's a complaint against the board chair, to refer it directly to district council or to have it go to the board vice chair. So that's a decision point. It adds gender identity to the complaint form. And then it describes a procedure in the same way. This is our existing one, it doesn't have that. And then when we get to educational opportunity, again, it adds the language that we talked about. But what I've discovered is that the model, sample model for educational opportunity, JB, here is very different than what we have currently adopted. So I'm guessing that it hasn't been updated in a while.
So we have a list of 40 documents here.
Right.
So
Well, these.
I
three-
actually read all 40 today because I didn't look closely at the agenda, I just read each one,
Right,
so.
well, the three that are connected with gender, race, gender identity and physical characteristics associated with, yeah, I'm using the policy updates. If you want to click on the policy update and track along that.
Okay, thank you.
So
that might be-
AC,
AC, ACAR, and JB.
where is that one? I don't see
And-
that one. Are you guys seeing it? JB, in the
Mhm.
boy.
If you sort it by name.
Yeah.
It's easier to find,
I was fine with that.
Is that equal educational opportunity?
yes.
Okay.
When I reviewed JB, I see a significant difference in the information in the model sample policy in our existing policy, which hasn't been updated since 2007. So for JB, I recommend that we repeal our existing and replace it with the new one. Now, you haven't had time to read those things, so I'm thinking that this is a first read for this as well.
So I'm really confused by the brackets.
The brackets mean we have options.
Right, but. I don't like the second paragraph. I don't understand. If we don't complete the first bracket, we choose not to put that in, the district shall, blah, blah, blah.
Which policy are you talking about?
I'm on JV.
Okay, all right,
Are you there?
yes,
Okay, so the second paragraph where it says, you know, the district shall, and those are the options. I don't understand if we choose not to put in that first parenthesis or bracket. We just start at no student will be excluded.
correct.
How would we get rid of the N on that bracket?
Well, we would,
The second, the N for the
we
no.
would capitalize the N, because
Okay.
that doesn't make sense to have a little.
So basically, I mean, paragraphs 2, 3, and 5 are all optional.
Right, well, yes. Sometimes the options are there if you have them in your own existing policy now, so you don't have to replicate it.
And we have none of that.
But we are required to have an equal educational opportunity plan, which is another accountability issue based on the district's goals for equitable
Mhm.
outcomes for all students is right aligned with what you want to accomplish.
So what do those asterisks mean at the title?
It's just a reference or which one that they're referring to in the documents. Sometimes there's a singular version, sometimes there's a second version. And if there's more to it than that asterisk, Bill, do you know anything more about the asterisks is nomenclature
Just, are you talking about in the policy itself?
in the title of the policy?
Yeah,
In essence, it's usually making a reference to it,
well, that's what I'm asking. Is there's no footnote that
No,
aligns with that.
so in comparison to our existing policy, it's significantly different. And I think that's because it hasn't been updated since 2007. There's lots of reference to Title IX in this. And there's,
In our original one, you mean?
yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's mentioned 6 times. And it's encompassed in the new policy, the updated policy. So it didn't go away, it's just that the updated policy is more inclusive. So that one, I think it might be a repeal and replace. So the recommendation for the first read is for AC that we amend it as, amend our current policy, making the changes that were recommended. For the ACAR, that we clean it up to the bracketed language, we just make decisions over how we want it to read. And then for JB, that we consider replacing it. Or do significant revisions. I'm not sure which one's more realistic. So that's it for the first read for those three policies.
These need to be motioned separately, correct?
You can do them together as a group.
I feel like this one sentence is very odd to me. I'm still on JB. It's taking a while to get through my head today. But all reports, complaints, or information will be investigated.
Mhm.
I just don't think that's very specific. I mean, I know it's policy, but I just. Reports of what? You know, that we're out of toilet paper in the bathroom, like, we need to be specific about, we're talking about reports, complaints of,
Someone being denied equal
yeah.
opportunity.
Discrimination.
Yeah, and then discrimination, and that's another policy that I get into. It's in that same group.
I just think it needs to be more specific to this, what we're talking about here, so that we're on the same page.
Mhm. So I can ask.
I'm a little hesitant at the information, like. I think I understand the intent is,
Mhm.
you know, hearsay about whatever,
Mhm.
but that's, again, not the way I would choose to write that.
Mhm.
I might have a suggestion for you another day, but right now, I don't.
Okay, so we have policy AC, which talks about non-discrimination,
Mhm.
which would talk about, you know, not discriminating against people based on
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Mhm.
So what JB just talks about equal educational opportunity. So it's just making the statement that we, you know, we're committed to offering an equal opportunity education to every student, just no matter their blah, blah, you know, everything. So if you're talking about discrimination, that would come under AC. Am I right about that, or am I lost on that?
Oh,
I could easily be lost.
this is about the district saying that the non-discrimination is that the district prohibits any discrimination and then the list. And that here's what we do to make sure that no one is discriminating to appointments, assignments, blah, 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 that, you know, this is our comprehensive policy.
Yeah, not just,
Right, and then it cites
you know,
the federal laws that we have to comply with, that we refer to, that give us the authority to enforce these rules. And to make sure that this is what we're doing, and that our staff is doing this, and that this is our work. Whereas, you know, ACAR is when someone makes a complaint and says, we're not doing this, here's the process that we follow. And then JB says that we will develop an equal opportunity plan.
Okay,
Yeah, and then we actually, there's a rule saying that we must have a plan. So we're saying we understand that we must do this. So here's how we're going to prove that we are doing it.
okay, and if they have a problem, they can go through the complaint procedure.
Exactly.
so For the, on JB again,
Mhm.
the educational opportunity where we include, does that terminology automatically include sports clubs, programs?
Mhm.
It does,
Mhm.
okay.
That's everything that the school based
Based on
activity.
how good their free throws are.
I think I missed a statement somewhere while I was lost trying to find documents. Is IB being skipped?
What's that?
Is IB being skipped?
IB. No,
So are you looking at that list of,
I was looking at the agenda. but
I'm really.
And IB is,
Yes,
IB is 10.
yes,
You said 9 through.
yeah, it comes up later. This is, remember, these are grouped by a certain
Oh, okay. I
law
was
was
just going
changed and
there.
it impacts a
Okay.
set of policies.
All right.
So they're grouped by the ones that were impacted by the change.
So in this discussion, we're dealing with AC, ACR, and JB, correct? Okay,
And
So-
maybe, right.
yeah. If there's no more questions of staff, we could go for a motion on this one.
So I move we take for first reading, policies AC, GBA, GBEA, and JB.
What?
As presented.
we haven't got through those.
Sorry?
AC,
AC, ACR, and
and
JB.
JB.
Oh, you're not doing GB?
No.
Okay, sorry.
So 1, 2, and 12.
Good evening, Superintendent Redlinger. How can I help?
You can be quiet.
Okay, this is as quiet as it gets.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion, did I hear a second?
Just to clarify, this first reading, not an adoption, correct?
Correct. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for first reading only. Is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll go for a vote. Bill,
Aye.
Heidi,
Aye.
Christie, Crystal,
Aye.
votes for. Just a point of order on that one, if we adopt JB, do we need to make an affirmative to replace that when we deal with that as an adopted?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would need to rescind the one policy and then come back with JB
Yes.
as the fill-in, okay?
Okay, then the next set, following the policy update, and I'm on page 3 of the policy update. There's,
Page 3 of the policy update is.
Oh,
yeah, that's my organizing,
oh,
Oh, you're okay.
yeah, so.
that's. You said you're on page 3?
Mhm. So if you're looking at the if you have the summary PDF opened in the tab, and then in a separate
This
tab or window,
Okay.
that'll help track.
So we're starting BBA.
Well, I was just gonna say, we should leave this as a read, because I don't think that we have an issue with this.
Do this as what?
I don't think we have an issue with this topic.
I don't even know what topic, I'm sorry, which one are we talking about?
BBAA at the top of page 3.
Board member seeking legal advice.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
one-
yeah, all
Is that the one
right.
you're on? Yeah.
I don't see that. I think the language is, they struck, a board member has the right to express personal opinions, and changed it to, when expressing personal opinions in public, the board member should clearly identify that the opinions are their own. I think you're already doing that, and I don't know that we need that change.
I don't think it hurts. I
Yeah,
mean, if you're gonna
yeah.
adopt the policy, I would leave that new language in there.
okay, all right. And then number 2, request for a legal opinion. The new language reads, request for legal advice or opinions by a board member that will incur a cost for the district must be approved by a majority vote of the board before the request is made to legal counsel. The board chair is authorized to obtain legal advice or opinions if advantageous to do so prior to the next meeting, e.g. advice regarding an executive session or a decision to invite district legal counsel without the need for board approval. Legal counsel is responsible to the board. So that just kind of clarifies that way. And that's it.
Yeah, I thought that one was fine.
Mhm.
Are those ones that we already have?
Let me take a look.
Because if we don't have them, I don't feel like we need to add them.
Yeah, because there's a few that are on this list that we do not have. And some of them fall into the reporting of misconduct. And those are the ones that I think I might ask you to add, but I want to consult with Mitch on those first.
We
Because
have these policies.
What was that, Diane? Was that Diane?
Yeah, these policies are required. So I believe, Ginger, that they're updates to existing policy.
And I think what we were saying is, she was asking is whether or not we actually have some of these policies, because some of them that appear on this list do not appear in our policies. So that was the question I think she was asking. And Diane,
Yeah,
it's-
they're marked optional.
all right, so that being the case, is there, I mean, I just wanted you guys to hear about those changes. Was you would want to take any action on them tonight?
Wow. Wow.
Somebody's not muted.
Who's wowing?
Not I.
I mean, okay, is that even on your BDAA?
It's not on the agenda, that's why I was confused.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm confused because we had like
Yeah.
40
yeah,
policies.
'cause
in
this is,
file.
yeah, this is an optional, so that's, yeah, so let's skip that, okay. Yeah, well, it hurts you to read them, but not right now. Again, the next one, yeah, let's get back to the ones we're doing.
So are we on IB?
Now we're on page 4, yes. So we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom of page 4. And actually it goes into the top of page 5. This goes back to the gender identity definition again. And the policies that are impacted and ARs impacted by the revisions, GBA, GBEA, GBNAAR, IB, JBB, IJ, and IIA, which we've already discussed. IIA, we don't need to discuss that again. And let me make sure I have this right. The GBNAAR is the one I pulled because that's part of the conversation that I need to have with Mitch.
I'm here tonight. We can-
So we'll start with GBA.
Oh, that's the one I thought we were.
Yes, so that's, yeah. So again, this adds gender identity, like the previous versions. It's not currently in this particular document. And then it also has some other conditions for which we are legally required to offer staff protections that are not currently in our policy. When I read our GBA, it's, again, it has some of the Title IX language. I'm looking at the last date, it was revised 2007. And since that time, the additions are after the word marital status, pregnancy, childbirth or related medical condition, age, veteran status, service in uniform service, familial status, genetic information, all of those conditions that are now considered protected. We don't have in our current policy. And the Title IX shows up here in this document, so it's still represented there. So my recommendation is upon the read that for GBA that we accept the revisions and update policy. Any questions about that?
I don't, but
Does
you
that
go ahead.
include GBEA?
No, they're just GBA.
Can we just do
We'll do
GBA right now then?
GBEA will do next, yeah.
Okay. I recommend, I give me the language.
I move.
I move, thank you. I move that we, except for first reading, policy GBA.
Second,
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill,
aye.
Heidi,
I,
Christie,
Aye.
Crystal,
I,
chair votes for, GBA is accepted as first reading.
Okay, and then GBEA, same thing. It has workplace harassment and it adds gender identity. But in addition to that, our current, this is the replacement language. Again, it mirrors the same thing. And this is our existing policy. So you can see it's not up to date. So I would recommend accepting the revisions and making sure that all of this language is in our policy, because it should.
I'll move that we accept for first reading policy GBEA as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Maybe, hang on.
Sure.
I got a question. Let me read this sentence. one more
Sure.
time now. On the second paragraph, after the bully sentence, it says the reporting of such information is voluntary. I don't understand that sentence. What information? And to who? What's voluntary in that?
Wait a minute, second paragraph, GBEA,
Uh-huh,
page 1, second
Uh-huh.
paragraph.
uh-huh.
may-
Right under the word bully, or the abbreviation bully.
Oh. May file a report through the legal industries complaint resolution process or any other law. So this gives them the option, according to, they can file bully complaints.
Right,
They can choose that pathway.
But it's their choice.
Yeah.
It's not like mandatory reporting, which is sexual,
Abuse.
whatever is abuse is mandatory reporting. Bully complaints are not mandatory, they're
Mhm.
voluntary.
so that sentence just means the employee has the option is,
That's how I read it.
Yes.
It's in the affirmative whether they choose to.
okay, but it already says that.
And I think we're required by statute to make that statement in the policy.
It already says may file a report.
With the district employee designated in the administrative regulation, GBA.
And may file a report through
Or, yeah,
bully.
I
may,
guess it's just reaffirming
Yeah, I
that
think
it's
it's just
volunteer.
reaffirming that it's voluntary. By law.
reporting such an
It's too, it,
I can't force you to file a whole.
Well, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that sentence is too vague. Like it doesn't, I don't know. Maybe it'll make sense on the second reading, but right now I just feel like it's.
To me, it's clarifying, so.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill?
I,
Heidi?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Crystal?
Sorry,
Chair votes for. Okay, so that brings us down to, so number 5 through 9, you said we're tabling,
Yes,
okay,
so we're on IB now.
okay,
We're again back, we're still on that page 4 of 10 and going through that list. And we're at IB.
Freedom of expression. Okay.
And again, this policy is designed to help students understand how we protect their right for freedom of expression and what the limits are.
this kind of goes with the Supreme Court decision.
Yes, and it also includes gender identity and some of the other ways in which students are protected. Familial status, parental status, linguistic background, culture, socioeconomic status, capability, geographic location, sex or sexual orientation, or gender identity. So it says that students are free to organize associations to promote their common interests. Student organizations should be open to all students. Membership criteria may not exclude students based on the basis of age, race, religion, and that whole list. So it just expands that list of activities that students can engage
The key sentence here is in the middle of 1, which is responsible,
in. Yes,
is fair and responsible and
Not
not
disruptive.
disruptive. That is the key component of this whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
What does that mean?
and we just need to update our policy to reflect that language. So that's,
It does say within the school system, which is also important. That's the cheerleader case that just occurred at the
Right.
beginning of this year.
Where does it say that?
Just above what I was just quoting, second sentence of 1, freedom of student inquiry, 1. The second sentence, express opinions publicly and privately within the school system. If you're familiar with the cheerleader test case
Yeah.
that went on. I think that was Virginia, or I'm not sure, don't quote me on that.
Texas. Is it Texas? Could have been
For
Virginia.
some reason, I was thinking it was East Coast.
It's usually
I was
Texas.
thinking Ohio, so. Okay,
Okay, do you have a motion on that?
yeah, I'll move to accept, for first reading, IB.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote on first reading of IB. Bill?
aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Christie? Crystal? Chair votes for. IB is accepted as a first reading.
Okay. JBB. It's policy about educational equity. And it adds gender identity to that language as well. And then it also adds, in number 1, it adds non-binary. And in number 3, it adds gender identity.
Sorry, where are we at?
I'm sorry,
JBB.
JBB?
JBB. Yeah.
So this is kind of,
Mhm.
is this kind of repetitive because we have the equal educational opportunity?
Every policy that deals with ensuring equitable access has been hit. When they made the change, we have to change all the policies to include that language. So this is another one of those. This particular policy was developed to address the challenges that are faced in providing, that schools are facing. It's the policy that helps express that we mean that all students are going to be served, and that achieving educational equity means students' identities will not predict or predetermine their success in school. So while it's similar in that regard, it also further defines how we will look at students and recognize them for their identities and backgrounds. So to make sure that when we're doing our work, we don't accidentally put up a barrier to equity. For example, counting non-binary students and students that refuse to identify one gender or another, and they want to be looked at differently. We weren't allowed in the past to count that. We made them pick. I'm sorry, yeah, you gotta be one of these students. So now there's a third category. So they can choose non-binary.
How does that actually happen? Like, I mean, how do you have to ask people?
Yes,
when you
it's
enroll?
check up on a form. Tick, ding, ding, ding.
Uh-huh.
So you.
So,
can-
I mean, I've registered students in this district.
Yeah.
Are you saying like through the Power School registration at the beginning of the year, that will now be a third
It's an
option?
Yeah,
It's an option now, or it has,
it will be.
it will be?
Hey, I thought we already covered this one. JB. But we're back on it?
I thought we already approved it for first.
No.
We're on JBB.
Oh,
2Bs.
JB is showing. So
Okay.
JBB,
Because I can't hear you guys, and I thought you guys said education, equal education opportunity. So which one should I pull up? And I certainly will do that.
Thank you. ABB.
It's not on the agenda.
The agenda, that's why. Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, these, as I, what I discovered was these were all the same thing, and they're optional, and they're in the same category. So it was just really quick, so pull them up.
So if this is optional,
But it was, it's not on the agenda to look at tonight, but it's there for you to look at.
But we aren't looking at tonight evidently.
Right.
I understand the point, or no,
Yes,
as an
yes, we will,
optional
we will.
policy, okay.
So the next one that we. And they're basically, if they're in that category, if you're looking at the summary, if you're looking at that category, you will see the same types of changes in each one of those places. All right.
so we are on JFCJ.
Let me check now to make sure I've got the right ones.
Again, looking at the agenda.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yep, let's go back to the agenda.
So we haven't done 11 yet. Or 12, right? Oh, wait, no, we did 12. We haven't done 11.
We haven't done 11.
We've done IB.
We've not
Alternative
done
education,
IDBHA.
yeah. Here's another list.
I had a question on this.
Okay, what's your question?
I wrote down, the board is required to annually approve alternative
Yes.
education programs.
Right.
Are we doing that? Do we do that?
No, because you don't have any,
So our online program is not an alternative education program?
no, they're all part of the high school.
So give me an example of an alternative education program.
Trillium Family Services.
A different
What's the
school,
nearest?
like Woodburn's Success Academy or something, or?
Well, if they left our school and went to another school that was run by somebody else, that's an alternative program.
So is, like when we did Bridges, that was, you don't remember that probably?
I don't know,
All right.
yeah. I know in Oregon City, we have several alternative programs that we contracted with, and the board had to approve them every year, and we had to evaluate them. Yeah. Unicorp, yeah, that was my, it requires you to do this, we don't currently have alternative education programs, so my recommendation was not to, we didn't have to make this change.
Do we have it in our policy now?
Let's take a look.
Well, we don't have an alternative education program coordinator, I'm guessing.
No,
So we don't need the AR.
Is this gonna be something that may come up with COVID being in play where we'll have to offer something like this?
no, because when you're doing something that's an extension of your own school's program, it's not an alternative program.
So this has nothing to do with the Oregon, what is that, Oregon Connections Academy or whatever like that?
Oh, that's a charter school. Charter schools are different
Okay.
than.
So why are we even looking at this? It's not applicable to us.
Yeah, so it's because it's required that we look at it. So I'm having you look at it. What I'm saying is, I'm not recommending that you take any action on it right now until we have more of a conversation about, we know that it's challenging for any one school district to have a one size fits all. So at some point in time, you may want to think about that. You currently don't have any options because you're meeting as much of the demand as possible with what you have internally. You have a virtual online program, you have the Opportunity Center, you have the empowerment program, and they're all part and all connected to the school. So it's
What is
not,
Willamette Career Academy considered?
it's connected to the school because it's transcribed through the high school.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
just go through the.
Yeah.
Okay. got it.
Yeah, true alternative program, the student is enrolled
It's
there,
elsewhere.
and then they transcript, and when they would come back from the alternative program, we have to take their transcript information and put it
That's
in
the word,
ours.
so we're transcripting
Yeah.
all those online and Willamette Career Academy and everything, so it's in our system.
Mhm.
Got it.
Okay, so
So no action.
it's
on this?
required,
No.
but it's not applicable to us, but it says it's required. Should we go ahead and adopt it then, or do we need to act on this?
I would first, I just adopt, I'd say a first read discussion, and we'll have a more in-depth conversation later on about it.
I move that we adopt the first reading IGBHA.
Second,
Motion in a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill? Heidi?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
Crystal?
I,
Chair votes for, IGBHA accepted for first reading.
okay, was discussed.
Okay, and then the next one, prohibition on false statements, JFC.
That's student conduct.
Student conduct, is that,
Yes,
we're pulling JB, oh no, we did JB.
We did
JFC,
We did
right,
JB.
okay, JFC.
Yeah.
Got it.
I just wanted to kind of give you guys context for all that moving forward.
13 through 15, are they separate? We're gonna be dealing with those separately, or are you grouping those?
13, we're doing right now.
Okay.
14, we are not.
Okay,
because again, I need to work with Mitch on that.
Mitch on that one, okay.
There's two versions of JFC.
Yes, this is
Which one are we looking at?
we're only looking at the student conduct right now.
But there's two versions. of
There are
it.
two versions.
Yes, we're looking at version 1. And the difference between our policy and this policy is the addition of one statement. And it's critical to the change in the rule. And it says that students are prohibited from making knowingly false statements or knowingly submitting false information in bad faith as part of a complaint or report or associated with an investigation into misconduct. And then below at the end, at the bottom of the page, the footnote, the district is prohibited from retaliating against any student for the reason that the student has in good faith reported information that the student believes is evidence of a violation of state or federal law, rule, or regulation. And this is in response to a few cases that came up where students were accused of doing this, and there was no clear responsibility assigned for students that knowingly made false statements.
So you're prohibited, but what's the
Yeah.
outcome if you do it?
Well, yeah, and that would be in the student handbook, that would be discipline.
Expulsion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it would be an expulsion, it would depend on the severity.
But the point is, it can be up to that.
Yeah, up to
right?
that, yeah.
So there is a
Yes,
penalty for
yes,
making a
because,
false
yeah,
statement,
Right.
because it doesn't really imply that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
it
and
has
the
to
kids
be
were
a
making statements that were false that actually had people put on paid administrative leave.
Understood, I'm just saying that
Yeah,
there's no implication here that you can punish a kid for doing that.
So then will this force the student handbook to be updated with that language?
Yes.
Okay. Is the student handbook part of an AR that we eventually see too? I think we've had this discussion at some other point, but I don't remember the result.
I think we just as a board asked that we get copies of it.
mhm.
That's what came out like.
The student
2 months
handbook,
ago.
yeah, and they're currently working on updating it for the graduation thing that we passed.
Yeah.
So this will be another update.
Okay.
And that's it for that one.
So that's required, right?
Okay, so I have a question on this one.
Yeah.
It says, students are subject to discipline in all these places, and it says, whenever such conduct causes a substantial or material disruption of the educational environment or the invasion of rights. It says, it says while at other schools in the district and while off campus.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's the part where we've kind of gotten in trouble in the past.
Mhm.
So subjective and,
So this
Yeah.
is what the Supreme Court
Right.
decided that substantial and material disruption is the key
Right.
metric.
Right.
But this one says off campus, whereas the other one said within the district,
Yes,
which is kind of interesting.
Well, the other one was just talking about the students' rights to
Right.
express themselves. It just
Within the
affirming that
district.
they're able to do that within the district.
But here, causing a disruption,
Right.
substantial disruption at any point in your week
Mhm.
is potential for, and that one's in brackets, do we have that one? So we're keeping it because it's not struck out, right?
Right.
Okay,
So is that a change or not a change for policy?
well, It's a little bit of a change. It's not a substantial change.
So right now, we do say while off campus.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, that's it's sticky. So it might be good for us to have in our back pocket, maybe in our understanding, maybe in the back of the student handbook, what's the definition or what are examples of material disruption or significant disruption?
That'd be difficult to do.
Yeah,
Another thing that came up 2 years ago was, what's the definition of student?
right.
Because in that, well, I guess I can't say, never mind.
That was a student.
No, they had officially graduated. They had graduated the day before the event.
There's something that in here states that like it's 120 days retroactive. I read that in one of these things about it being, that you can hold them accountable for the actions done 100, like so many days before. But
So many days
But
before
that's
the
in,
act.
that's in reverse, yeah, that's the flip side.
and I don't remember what policy that was. I read so many. of it.
Yeah. But anyhow, maybe that doesn't need to be defined, it's just that popped up, but.
Yeah, these are all sticky areas, and in our current environment, things are changing so fast, it's hard to think of every contingency that could possibly happen or situation and anticipate it.
I think if you try to define substantial material disruption in words, that's gonna, under any circumstance, it's going to be debated.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right?
So let me ask this, argue for me why we would leave off campus in there. What's a scenario where we would want specifically to have off campus language as it relates to this policy?
Bullying,
Um,
bullying can occur
A
off
threat,
campus,
a
but
threat to
But
a
a
person.
threat to a student or teacher done off campus can substantially materially disrupt the education process.
Kids having an argument at school and then they meet up in a park and the other kid puts one kid in the hospital.
So that's just what I'm asking as it relates to this policy, because that I think.
Yeah.
That's not the slippery slope of free speech,
Right.
you know what I mean, that sort of stuff. This is
Yeah.
making a material threat against or
Yeah.
executing a material threat or actually doing an action that is.
But if somebody exercises their free speech and then somebody says, well, I am so offended by this, we're gonna have a sit out in the hall today because of what this student said, you know, on social media last night in his bedroom. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So then that's substantially disrupting education. I don't know, my mind's going everywhere with this, so I don't know.
This is the sticky part of what the Supreme Court did.
Mhm.
I will chime in and agree that I feel very uncomfortable with this. I don't think that any one person should have that jurisdiction, given the past of things that we've had to deal with. And I don't know, if it's not on our school grounds, I don't really think that we should be policing outside of the district's place.
That language out, it has to stay.
Yeah, because the
there.
bullying laws that are Oregon legislative laws require that.
Mhm.
Anti-bullying laws, I mean.
I get that, but when I'm listening to all of you, what I'm hearing is if there's an issue at school and they get in a fight in a public park or at a home, then they will be reprimanded on school property for something that took place outside of school hours.
If it started at school,
How can you prove that? I mean,
well, the kids say, well, in
Yeah.
class, he called me out.
That's pretty much anything for that.
Yeah, I don't,
how would you feel about taking out the line while off campus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna vote for this with that in there. I just don't, this just does not. Yeah, no, this feels like it crosses a line after school hours. Like we can't, this goes directly back to the situation that we dealt with prior.
So, I mean, we have all, it says while at school, at the bus, at a school-sponsored event, while at other schools, not only in the district, but you could, I would assume it's other schools while you're at a school event at another school, like at a sports event. That's all, I got that, but now you're saying, you're going into some kid's bedroom while he's tweeting at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know.
What if it's what if it is a material threat against somebody or
That's why you need.
place?
Then you can,
Then the police should be involved. It should be a police officer situation where they're involved. It shouldn't be the district.
But there's no repercussions in the district?
well, that would be a
The police
substantial
cannot.
or material disruption.
But that's.
The police would communicate with the district. They should be the first point. The district should not be the first point.
They're not. You didn't listen to what I was saying. The part about if you're in those situations, you are specifically naming locations, and if that event happens outside of those locations, then there's your loophole where you cannot get into trouble at school.
No, so exactly that.
What I just said. Yes, if there is a material threat against something at the district, yes, the police are involved. I agree. But then the student comes back to school.
Yeah, the police cannot ban the student from school. Only the school
We-
district
we-
can ban a student from school.
Can't do anything about that.
So you don't want a student who made a threat to another student or teacher just to come onto campus Monday because they made the threat on Saturday.
Or a whole team, or a whole
Or whatever,
classroom,
yeah.
or something like that, then that student is maybe not in any of those specific locations named here. They're just off campus somewhere, but we've taken that out, and now we have no option to do that because they weren't at another school in the district.
When that bomb threat happened, when my senior was in school, the police notified the district who chose to keep it from the parents.
What is
Okay, well, so then,
And that was off campus. The police were involved.
I'm not saying that they won't be involved. What I'm saying is regardless of what has happened in the past,
It's an overreach of government.
can I finish my sentence, please? Regardless of what has happened in the past, if we didn't agree with it, we need to set the policy for the way we want it to be in the future. I will
Right.
not go.
And that is an overreach of government. You cannot be, this is still goes down to a person's opinion of what off campus is an issue. These are teenagers who are not fully developed, do the criminal justice backgrounds, do all of that. And what you're saying now is a mistake made off campus can have retaliation in their school, regardless of any other thing. So this is a person's perspective.
The student who was threatened, right? I mean, if you got a threat against a student's life on Saturday, that student also has to come to school on Monday, and they should feel safe.
I still don't agree with the off campus. I will vote no.
I'm really torn. I see both sides. And it's just subjective, and it really depends on how it's administered and how it's interpreted.
So in
So-
other, I'm sorry, Heidi.
No, I'm done.
Well, so in other policies that we've talked about where there were questions about how it would be administered, we asked for an AR to come to the board, right? So maybe we need an AR and how this is gonna be administered, because that's not what we're talking about. How it has been administered in the past has obviously upset people.
Correct.
Both directions.
I'm sure, so that is not what that's not what is in front of us. What is in front of us is the policy on this. The administration part of it is something different and needs to be dealt with also. I would like to see if there are any schools that don't have off-campus. in their policy. I would be surprised.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest, is we can look into that. And it says anytime you deviate from a policy like this, that you should seek legal counsel.
Mhm.
So I will ask information about that, and I will also ask that question. And maybe Diane?
Yep, I'm here.
Would you ask your colleagues if they have any JFC ARs? Or if they have a JFC that doesn't have language about off-campus?
Definitely, yes, I will.
So am I hearing a sentiment to table this, or do you want to vote on this?
Well, I think you can still approve a first read with,
Table. I want it tabled. I make a motion that we table this till we have the additional information.
Well, table means that we don't deal with it. I mean, we just put it off till when we don't even put a date.
Yeah.
on.
Till we
But-
have the information from Diane to see if that's in there. Because I will still vote no on a first read.
So, do I hear a second on her motion? Table.
What was the motion?
She made a motion to table. I'm not
Till
hearing.
we have the information from Diane regarding other districts.
Okay, can I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We could make a motion. I think that we could approve this for first reading. We've read it, but we have a lot of concerns about it. And then that will come up when we get more information. We can have a deeper discussion about it when we read it for adoption. Or a second reading. We can do second and third readings if we need to.
You want to
So-
have this discussion at the board meeting in December because that's when it's going to be put on for a second reading.
maybe not.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
We
be.
have the strategic planning.
Typically it is. That's why I wanted to table.
Okay, I still have a motion on the table. I don't have a second on it. Not hearing a second, the motion dies. Somebody want to make a motion the other direction?
I was thinking, I'll make a motion that we approve policy JFC for first reading, as presented with, yeah.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. Bill?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Chrissy?
Aye.
Crystal?
Nay,
Chair votes nay. Motion carries.
No. Need four. Need four votes to pass.
The motion failed.
Okay, and the motion fails.
The motion failed.
Motion failed.
I thought we needed just a
No,
majority
no,
of
no.
votes here. It's a
You're
majority.
right.
You're right.
That's a plurality. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Next one. Making sure I'm doing this right. Thank you, Diane, for catching that.
are we on number 15 or is that one on pause?
I think that was when we were holding, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm trying to find my papers. There it is. 14 is on pause. 15, we're only required to act on this policy, even though it says required. It's only if you want to ban concealed carry.
This is a new law just freshly
Yeah,
passed
yeah.
at the legislature.
This is optional.
It's.
Yeah, it's optional.
If we wanted to do that, it's required. Since we don't, I don't think the district wants to do that.
No,
We would just, we don't have to. Even though they're saying it's required. They're to ban something. So I think I'm skipping that.
I would support that,
I'd support skipping.
unless we want to have a discussion.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Sure.
Let me read this one here, sorry.
It's confusing if you read this law, but the question, do you mind if I help you here, Chris?
Yeah, do it, please.
Because the main question is, if, so, okay, correct me if I'm wrong about this, because I'm not sure myself, but federal law says you can't carry a gun on property, correct? Unless you were part of a security program or class or something like that.
Federal.
Federal property, okay. So if, as it now stands, if we don't have this law, you can conceal carry, following all the regulations, if you're, okay.
A student.
No,
Student can't
Students
get
aren't
a
young
concealed
enough,
carry.
aren't old enough to have concealed.
That's what the first sentence is really confusing me now.
Especially 'cause I don't see policy as a policy.
yeah, you're right, it's confusingly written, I think.
If the district does not want to limit concealed carry licensees, it does not need to adopt this policy. So, boom.
Yeah, but I mean, the first sentence of students shall not, that's why I just
Yeah.
got really confused for a second. Okay, I don't have any questions right now, thank you.
What's the next?
So am I hearing we're not taking any action on this? Is that?
That would be
motion?
my-
So
that
we'll
would be
move
my
on,
vote.
move on the agenda. Okay.
And with that, we're done.
Well, except for Jillian's.
Oh, Jillian's presentation, yes, and we're done with the policies. And then I need to go back because if I accidentally had you approve the first reading of something that wasn't on the agenda, that's out of order.
Okay.
So Diane, do we need to make a correction on that?
Which one are you talking about that you approved? Because
For
I'm
first,
gonna confuse myself.
I'm gonna look at the list. If there's any that weren't on the agenda that we approved, do we need to take action to rescind that approval?
The way that I see it and have followed you, the ones that were on the agenda are the ones that motions were made on. You did bring up a reference to JBB, which was not on the agenda, which I believe was tabled to the December meeting.
It had no action. I do not believe you've made any approvals for first reading on anything that wasn't on the agenda.
Correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear. I didn't want
I'll be
to
right back.
leave this topic with in a bad spot. So I wanted to be sure we did. Okay, all right. Jillian,
Does anyone else need a break or?
No, go.
Hello, North Marion School Board, staff, and the North Marion community. Today I'm introducing a plan, first draft. Oh, okay. That will not only serve as a guideline for the duration of the year, but as a model for our future annually renewed communications plans. This plan focuses on serving the whole district, and I would like the school board's input, please. The first part, I just want to make acknowledgements to Superintendent Ginger Redlinger, the North Marion School Board, because I met with you guys, the 9 organizations comprising the Hispanic group Capaces, and the Jubilee Food Pantry and other local groups. The communications committee included me as well as Diane Lodge, Jill Colley, Irma Patton, Sherry Stroud, Agnes Albert, Ruby Contreras, and Marie Jones, Annika Milburn, Giselle Terrell, and a couple of students as well. And so the first part is I kind of wanted to look at the main purpose of our plan. Based on our demographics and extensive conversations with people throughout the district and in our wider community, now is the time to focus closely on those students who are the hardest to reach. Our low-income students without access to technology, our ESL students. They're the ones who we're struggling with the most. So the introduction gives us a sense of who we are as an organization so we can go forward. The district's identity stands on the firm foundation of an open, accepting mission and vision statement. And the introduction also looks at our demographics. so that we know whom to serve and how to serve them. One of the interesting things that came up as I was doing this is that the number of Hispanic students in our district increased by 3 percentage points to 53% from 2019-20 to 2021-22. The number of multiracial students increased by 1 percentage point, while the number of white students decreased by 4 percentage points. So the district is now just 41% white. So I thought that was incredibly interesting, that the dynamics are shifting from kind of more of a 50-50. And then, so that was kind of what I did, analyzing for the introduction for demographics and some of the other things, and then moving on to audience. I went over it's really extensive, and you can click on them and look at it more thoroughly if you wish, but one of the things that I took out from this is that while we have a huge Hispanic population, only 4% of our audience on Facebook actually speaks Spanish. So Facebook is not reaching them. So I added some other social media platforms, and I was starting to look at some other ways to reach people. So that was kind of one of the things that I got out of my audience analysis, which you do to determine, you kind of segment your audience, you figure out who can you reach here, who can you reach here. And so that was kind of a little bit on audience. And then I also did a SWOT analysis, and SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But we're going to consider our SWOT analysis to be more of a SWOT analysis, using challenges in lieu of threats out of respect for people being a bit more sensitive to terminology currently. Thank you, Diane, that's a good suggestion. Looking at all that we have achieved, we have an incredibly strong district with a warm and open message and a strong desire to reach out to others, and we are doing a great deal. But our greatest weakness is difficulty with reaching the entire community, especially low-income families and Spanish-speaking families. Just not getting, like, that is what I heard over and over. But the interesting thing is we've actually done a ton of things to address it. We have bilingual secretaries available K-8. There's a new equity and inclusion director, Irma Patton, who's amazing. We have a full-time translator, family liaisons, a new communication specialist, a new communications platform with greater ADA and language capabilities, a better website, same thing, greater accessibility. But we do have some challenges to overcome. We could use a bilingual secretary or assistant to help at the high school, for example. I mean, there are so many ways you could fill in, but then it comes to hiring, and hiring is kind of at a standstill. But another challenge we have is we had to reschedule the English language development class that was an extra offering for first and second graders before school to a time in the afternoon during the school day. There are issues with cohorting as the students were coming in on the high school bus. So that became a problem during the pandemic, and just they couldn't do it. So they came up with a temporary solution to hold the class in the afternoon. But we hope this is only a temporary problem, but it is kind of a challenge for a lot of the students right now. And another challenge is migrant parent nights have changed to video outreach because of pandemic era restrictions. And this challenge actually is also in the opportunity section, as is the other one, because some of the solutions that they came up with when there was an issue were actually really successful. Irma had this great idea to put them on video, and she hasn't done it yet, but she says that more people can be reached successfully through videos on texts. So they can text people a video on a particular topic they have questions about, and like when they couldn't have gone to a meeting, when they couldn't get transportation. So I thought that was just brilliant, and I was really impressed. So to ensure that everybody is getting the information that they need, we are going to work strategically for more outreach. One way to do that is what I've been doing currently, which is connecting with stakeholders and community groups to ask what the community actually wants. So you can find out and not just kind of think you know what you're doing, but really ask people and what they need. And another would be to potentially do a telephone or text survey. We were kind of moving away from the technological survey because a lot of people just, if they don't have access to technology, they're not going to give us any input using technology. So, so far, some of the ideas that have come up, bilingual posts on Facebook, all you have to do is change it. Like there's a little thing you can click and then everybody can read it if they want to. We have like 4% of people who would prefer it in Spanish, if, and I thought that was important. Text with videos, thank you, Irma. And using Radio Poder, which is, could reach a wider audience. I just thought that was a really good idea. That one was from Ruby. And
Can I ask you about that one?
yes,
Is that a station in Woodburn? Is that Pantera?
it is. It's a
Yeah.
local station and they could reach
Okay.
more people. And you can just call them in the Woodburn School District. I'm gonna talk with somebody over there, like kind of connect with some of our colleagues and ask them how they partner with them because I mean, we could get our stuff out there and then people would know about it through the radio, which I guess is very widely listened to. And also an idea, I think Ginger, you gave me this one, which I thought was really good too, was a quarterly print newsletter. And Diane gave me a ton of ideas on how to make this a success. But it's gonna take a while to figure it out logistically. So those are kind of some of the things that I went over in the SWOT analysis. And kind of how I came up with the goals section. And for the goals, it's extensive, so I don't really want to go into each of these different points because it's a late hour and you can delve into them further. And I can talk about them in the plan. But I created a 4-pronged set of goals to help us reach more people during a complicated time, while also ensuring that staff are aware of all that is going on and media hear about the good stuff that's actually happening here, which I've been working really hard on. So I divided it into parent engagement, crisis communications, internal communications, and media relations. And I created goals in each of those areas. And that's how I made a plan. And in this plan, which I actually have, I've got a paper copy too, just in case anybody wanted to see like a paper version. I really am kind of used to the Google Doc form, but I mean, maybe, and I created a Gantt chart. And a Gantt chart just shows you each task and when you plan to complete it. And this plan I used based on input and then the goals that we divided it into goals and I created the plan. And you guys can carefully step over here. Take a look at that if you wish. So there's that as well. And then in the plan, you can see some of the tasks that have already been completed this year because I kind of knew what I was going to do because I've done a communications plan previously. And so I had some ideas. And you always start with one-on-one outreach. So I did that and I've met with some of you even. And to make sure that we're headed in the right direction, I added a new communications platform. And already in the works was a new website, which I helped design and put out there. And that took a chunk of time, but people are really liking it. That was a great idea. Whoever decided we needed to change that thing.
Thank you, Crystal.
It looks much better. So that was great. And then in addition to that, there's that new communications platform, which Greg and I worked on. He was like, maybe we could change it. And I was like, yes, let's change it. And
You
this
mean,
one.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, from School Messenger to Parent
To
Square?
Parent Square, and
Okay.
Parent Square is a little like, it's brand new to us and maybe it's not perfect, but it is better at reaching people. We can archive messages. It has greater accessibility because it's organized in a certain way. So anybody with different eyesight can use it. And it has better language capabilities. Like a teacher can send a message in English and it'll go through into Spanish to the parent. And then the parent can send it in Spanish and it'll go through into English. So I thought that was perfect. That's what sold us on this one. And so it's again about increasing access. So I'm also trying to do more student-based content, kind of shining light on students. And we're doing so much more, and there's so much more that was done already before I even got here. It was really good. You guys are, I was impressed, especially with the family liaisons and the bilingual secretaries and the equity and inclusion director. I thought those were brilliant steps. So upcoming efforts include researching outreach for the radio, really whittling down to how we can reach all of our families. And I can talk a little bit more about that. I want to make sure maybe there's another language we need to include, maybe, anyway, and then aligning this draft with a strategic plan to ensure continuity of vision. I wanted to go ahead and show you the draft that I had, but the strategic planning group is going to be meeting soon. And so I could change some of the direction and reshape it to align with that. And then also I'm going to be creating a printed quarterly newsletter. And then in terms of evaluation, anyway, our evaluation efforts will include support from a wide range of groups to make sure we really are reaching everyone we should be reaching. We will be asking for help from community groups in our own school district experts. Like I've spoken with the PTO and several other individuals to make sure that this is what people really want and that we're giving it to everybody. Like it should be everyone's plan. So our greatest weakness may be our difficulty reaching the entire community, especially our low-income families with a digital divide and Spanish-speaking families as well. But you've done so much to improve that weakness. And we know that there is so much more to do, but we can do it. And so please enjoy this paper copy and please feel free to share feedback. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love your enthusiasm. That's great. I really appreciated also the analytics and the data and the feedback that you got, like how well certain means that you're using are being used and what kind of response you're getting. I thought that was really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the diagnostics on where penetration is actually coming from, what's not. So yeah, that's
Huge.
Point out that Jillian's journalism background is showing up well, including getting her articles pre-printed in the Woodburn Independent as well as the
Yeah.
OSBA Daily News, which goes to a lot of legislators.
Yeah.
So her
I know.
journalism skills are really promoting the district.
I've been looking at Christie's picture on my counter all week.
That was one of our most bad stories.
I didn't need that.
Also want to point out the work of our family counselors, our family outreach program, you know, Raphael and company are just doing great work and they really need to be supported and promoted.
Amazing. Amazing. It's like, I went and met Ruby the other day and she was just on the phone.
Yeah.
She's like, wait, I can meet with you. I'm on the phone. It's just-
Carla, Ruby, Raphael, all this group of people really are connecting the district and the community in tremendous ways. Also promoting Raphael's work with some of the low-income families for the holidays here. And yeah, that's just a really over above requirements of the job. And thanks for all you've done.
Thank you.
So that is the end of our agenda. Is there any other business that needs to come before us? Hearing none, I guess I'll gavel us down at 8:30.
Yeah, Gavelstown.
Okay, we're done.
So for our December meeting, is that going to be our strategic planning meeting then with Mr. Colon?
Kelowna,
Colon?
Kelowna.
Kelowna, yeah. Okay.
Looking forward to that.
This is almost turning into a board meeting.
This
Yeah,
was?
nobody else understands that reference except me and Bill. You were?
I wasn't.
We didn't have work.
They were 4 hour, 5
Yeah.
hour.